Gloria Strode, and welcome to a very special edition of Straightforward. Many of you might not be aware, but we have a national conversation about data centers and how they can impact our environments and our communities. So today we wanted to educate and inform you on the national conversation. Be clear that you're clear. We hear all of the wonderful talking points about employment and how that could change the face of the community. But the other side of the conversation you need to hear is about how it can impact your family finances and our environment. So stay tuned and join us.
Let's be loud, let's be clear. We don't want a data center here. Let's be loud, let's be clear. We don't want. Let's be loud, let's be clear. We don't want a data center here. Let's be loud, let's be clear. We don't want.
Is we don't enforce our ordinances here in Columbus, Georgia, consistently and effectively. We can't enforce our small local ordinances. How are we going to enforce an ordinance of this magnitude against a $1 billion company? I hate to call you out, but it's important because you...
I don't cry anymore.
Sure.
I'm just exhausted from it.
Every house requirement that they plot is leveled.
Joy and Jean Van Loo are a fifth-generation farming family in New Carlisle, Indiana, a small town with around 2,000 people in the northwestern part of the state. This is where Amazon is building their largest data center in America.
How's your water situation here?
Tainted. It tastes weird. It's just not the same.
Do you think it has to do with the data center, the construction?
Well, yeah, they have them two 24-inch pipes pumping water across the street over here. They're dewatering, as they call it, so they can put the foundations down.
They went through this process called dewatering because of Amazon's data center construction, where they were actually removing groundwater that people rely on here for their drinking water. And this pond normally would be full up, but now you can see it's been vastly depleted. The Van Loo family owns over 200 acres, but their new neighbor will consume as much power as 1 million homes, guzzling millions of gallons of water from the Kankakee Aquifer to cool hundreds of thousands of computer chips. It will serve the AI startup Anthropic, which is working to create an AI system that matches the human brain. And Amazon is its largest financial backer. You don't think you can win?
No, you can't, man. They got better lawyers than we can get hold of, and then the town of New Carlisle threw us under the bus.
Still a lot of dewatering going on, even though they've been told they're in violation.
Like I say, we're a little fish in a big pond.
Little fish in a pond that's been sucked dry by Amazon. Indiana is experiencing a data center invasion. 30 minutes away, another data center fight is unfolding.
I asked for you to show More Perfect Union's wasteland tonight so that people can see with their eyes.
At this city council meeting in Michigan City, Indiana, resident Eileen Mark is asking city officials to play a More Perfect Union video we made a few months ago about Musk's XAI data center in Memphis.
Now, Rochester went to XAI to see that they had 35 gas turbines operating and polluting our air.
Why isn't this video being shown tonight?
The reason? The developers behind that XAI facility, Phoenix Investors, is now trying to secure a tax break for a new data center in this small Indiana town.
What is going on in Memphis? What Phoenix Investors has done in Memphis with their end user, tenant, Elon Musk. I didn't get even a response from you.
I came here in the middle of a fight between residents and local officials to witness it all play out in real time. The end user who would control the data center would also receive a massive tax break. Their identity is a secret.
This vote is about the future of Michigan City. And so we've just been pounding pavement, hitting every door we could. Have you heard about the data center coming?
Yeah, everybody concerned about it.
To alert residents.
If the data center gets built here, you want to move away?
We would want to move. I'm reading some of the effects with like the diabetes, the lack of sleep, how it can lead to all these different health effects.
And how much are you paying in your electric bills now compared to before?
My electric and gas bill was more than my car payment. I mean,
it's insane to me.
Everything is coming down to tonight and whether or not the city is going to put the profit motive, put big tech over people.
The evidence is out there, and residents that live nearby these hyperscale data centers are sharing their stories. You can find them if you care to look.
These are just two of the data center battles taking place in Indiana.
What we're seeing in Indiana is a lot of data center development, over 30, maybe over 40 in some stage of development throughout our state for a variety of reasons.
Meta, Google, Microsoft, CoreWeave, and QTS, owned by Blackstone, are in the state too. I wanted to know why Indiana became such a hotspot for big tech and how billionaires and the shell corporations they hide behind seem to be winning so big in the Hoosier state.
Number one, we have an incredibly supportive policy at the state level. We have leadership, we have a supermajority, we have regulators who are all very, very supportive of attracting business in the state of Indiana.
Republicans hold 40 out of 50 seats in the state Senate and 70 out of 100 seats in the Indiana House of Representatives, including Senators Eric Koch and Edmund Soliday, who authored a bill allowing utility companies to pass along some of the cost of small modular nuclear reactors to its customers and keep coal plants online, all in support of AI data centers. We reached out to both lawmakers to ask for an on-camera interview, but received no response. But it was another bill, House Bill 1405, introduced in 2019 by Representative Martin Carbo, that laid the groundwork for the data center boom, providing sales and use tax exemptions for equipment purchased to build. And there's another reason why Indiana's towns and cities are feeling pressure to welcome data centers.
They're losing federal funding for certain programs and certain support. They're losing state funding for certain programs and certain support. Some of these local leaders are very concerned about the financial health and well-being of their local community.
We'll continue this informative conversation after a word from some of our sponsors. Straightforward is brought to you by State Senator Ed Harbison, serving the citizens of Georgia's 15th Senatorial District and on the front lines for veterans every day. Progressive Funeral Home, family owned and operated since 1952. The George Ford legacy of high standards continues today in the compassionate and professional services provided, a touch of dignity for those who care. Progressive Funeral Home, 4235 St. Mary's Road, trusted by generations. Whole Patient Healthcare. Dr. Jada Rimes-Bacote is board certified in family medicine. She believes the best patient care includes practical, individualized lifestyle changes. Located at 1338 13th Avenue, Columbus, 706-641-2080, or visit wholepatienthealthcare.com.
The state of Georgia averages 5 fatalities a day for motor vehicle crashes. Out of all 50 states, Georgia ranks 21st in impaired driving fatalities. Remember, buzz driving is impaired driving.
Be a team player, designate a sober driver.
Hi, I'm Sheriff Greg Countryman. Make the right choice. The ball is in your hands. Stay sober and don't get pulled over.
I know you're talking about protections. Yes, it provides some protections, but I thought I had a protection when I bought my property. So what does this overlay reach other than data centers? Tell me, what else does it benefit? And when are we going to get to matter? When are we going to get to hear the people, the downside of data centers, the downside of an overlay?
Now, 5 million gallons. That's how much water a large data center in the U.S. can use on an average day. That shocking statistic, according to the Nonpartisan Environmental and Energy Study Institute. This is all because of the need to cool down servers, raising concerns about the huge environmental impact of running these centers. Our next guest is calling for more transparency on the impact to neighboring communities, from persistent noise pollution to dwindling water supplies. Renowned environmental activist Erin Brockovich joins Hari Srinivasan to discuss her latest campaign.
Piana, thanks. Aaron Brockovich, thanks so much for joining us. Most people watching this will have heard your name probably from a movie where one Julia Roberts played you for a very famous lawsuit that came against Pacific Gas and Electric. And this was a settlement because you really were fighting on behalf of people who had their drinking water contaminated. But now what's interesting is that you are advocating on behalf of people who are affected by data centers in their community. You've built this amazing crowdsourced map around the country. Your site crashed a couple of times. You've got what now, 5,000 reports from 49 states?
So it's over 10,000 submissions, and each submission that comes in, I hand read. And then that gets moved to another team member who hand reads and vets again, zip code, location, all of that kind of information. And then it goes to Excel and it's put onto the Google Maps. And so what was very interesting is quickly that I was learning while it was across the country, everybody had the exact same concern. First and foremost, they had no idea what was going on. They weren't informed. If they did show up, they couldn't speak. They were asked to leave. And so that became a real place for these people to start becoming concerned about what was happening. I have clearly learned for 30 years that communities handle the truth. They like to have a conversation. They like to know what's going on. But when something's done in secret or they're lied to, it becomes a different game. So very quickly, that was my first concern that I could see across the board that was happening for everybody.
What are the kinds of problems that people are writing to you about? I mean, somebody at the county commissioner's office, so to speak, or whoever does the permitting for these things, whether it's a city or a state government, somebody is in a conversation with a hyperscaler data center company or one of the big social media companies that uses these, right? Or the AI companies. What is the deal? What are the types of deals that are being done?
Well, in the beginning, and again, as this gets bigger and more information comes in, we start learning more about what's happening. For many of them, it was just blanket. They had no idea. Just all of a sudden, this construction was starting in their backyard. So when they would go into city councils, they were told it wasn't on the meeting. It wasn't scheduled. They weren't notified. They didn't have an opportunity to show up, and that this was done under non-disclosures agreements. So these companies just came in and made deals. What we're seeing now as people are knowing more, getting into city council, what happened, a lot of times zoning was changed to permit, to allow for the larger data centers to come in. So they will tell you, and their verbiage to me is secrecy, cover-ups, lies, denied what they feel was their right to show up to a meeting and have a say about what was happening in their backyard. So it was like, and nothing was done with any notice. They're very concerned that there was no environmental impact studies done. They were concerned, are there any regulations, the water, all of that. And so that is what really, I think, began this huge conversation was secrecy. And it wasn't one town. I think that's what's really surprising me. Hinkley was one town, one aquifer, one chemical. This is a Hinkley in multiple counties and cities in every single state. And the fact that all of it was just in secret is kind of shocking.
In your experience now, having looked at and advocated on behalf of the people and seen so many different lawsuits, at least in the water pollution space, are there legal tactics that you have figured out from your experience to empower residents to try to get more information when there are these legally binding documents in place that preserve the secrets?
I think we're watching that process happening. So these communities are very smart, and they will start joining one neighbor and another, then another. And in many of these communities, they have local engineers that work there, people that could explain things to them. And then they start to organize in a thoughtful, meaningful way and showing up at the city councils to try to get information. And that's the process that we're watching in the proposal. So there's many stages happening, which is proposal to construction to up and running. And so they get organized, they network, and they start getting facts, information. They inform themselves. And so we are seeing some lawsuits happening. And again, the reason I like the mapping, and this is self-reporting, this is the people who are living, breathing, and experiencing a situation, and who better to learn something from than them. And so now city councils, and there has been a big turn where they're doing pauses, moratoriums, bans, because the people are showing up. And now these councils are being sued for hundreds of millions of dollars by the companies for breach of an NDA and a contract. And so I actually get emails from mayors and council members, we can't sustain that type of lawsuit. So then they kind of back away. So those types of lawsuits are occurring. There's many out there. This is such a local thing. State by state, you're seeing local attorneys show up to help support that community. And then now you have attorneys defending these council and these cities who are being sued because they broke the contracts.
There was a recent piece in the Atlantic talking about Loudoun County, Virginia, which is a home for lots and lots of different data centers. And look, the county commissioners and people there, the leaders there, say, look, we're projecting $1.3 billion in revenue from the property taxes and the taxes from these places. The county has used that money to build 32 schools, 16 fire stations. They've cut property taxes for homeowners by a third, right? So there's this enormous pile of money that people see, and I don't know, so when you get these emails from people, are they taking those sort of costs and benefits into consideration?
Yes, they are, and they understand that this could be a benefit to the county, but it doesn't always spill over into the county. We've watched this happen over and over again. The city council gets money, but they don't put it towards something that the community feels that they need. It goes to something else, or it's misappropriated or misbudget. We've seen that go on forever. So they are thoughtful of that. But here's what I think is so important. They were left out of every equation to have a seat at the table and give us a boundary. How about we start there and not put them in our literally backyard? They're right there. Give us a space, 25 miles, 30 miles, but have a conversation. So they do appreciate that. They do understand that, but it's coming at a cost to them, where I'm now seeing utility bills double, tripling, water bills double, tripling. They're extraordinarily concerned for those that are on well water. They're losing their water pressure. They're having brownouts. They're having flickering. Their Wi-Fi is going down. The noise is deafening. And that comes at a great cost.
Well, let's talk a little bit about each of these separate costs that people are complaining to you about and pointing out to you. Let's start with electricity. The Lawrence Berkeley National Lab estimated that U.S. data centers are using about 4% of all the energy that's being generated in the country. What does that number mean? That's really abstract, but when you hear from people on the ground, what is the cost of these data centers? How does that translate to their personal lives?
Well, I pulled out a couple of people that had just written in recently, and they're coming from all states. So this is a person out of the Massachusetts area who normally had this was their water bill, around $22 a month, which has now spiked to over $350 a month. There's other reports here on electric. This person is reporting that their summertime electric bill went from about $50 a month to in excess of $300 a month. These are big jumps, and it's a huge strain for them. And there hasn't been a conversation for these companies that are going to come in. You paid for the electric. Why do we have to pay that cost? And then we have a facility in our backyard that is straining our other natural resources, and they're very concerned about the future impact of their health. So I even just received, and again, I really want people to know, we read each submission and try to vet and verify that information coming out of Texas, where they got a notice from the utility that their electric rates could increase 75%.
We'll continue this informative conversation after a word from some of our sponsors.
Even at lower speeds, a crash between a bicyclist and motor vehicle can cause broken bones and traumatic brain injuries. Busy intersections are particularly dangerous for cyclists. Wear a helmet, stop at red lights, use hand signals, yield to pedestrians. Bike safe, bike smart.
Paid for with grant funds from the Governor's Office of Highway Safety.
New Horizons Behavioral Health, building better lives in the Chattahoochee Valley, providing services to persons with mental illness, developmental disabilities, and addictive diseases. Located in the Health and Human Services Building, 2100 Comer Avenue, Columbus, or call 706-596-5500. Barbara's Cleaning Service, a 5-star commercial service with satisfied customers in Georgia and South Carolina, built on the principle that every detail matters. Barbara's Cleaning Service, a new season building a family legacy. Charmaine Crabb, Associate Broker of Champions Realty. Charmaine's greatest reward is helping families achieve home ownership, which is a cornerstone of the American dream. Call Charmaine today at 706-392-6116 or visit championsrealty.com.
Also a little bit about the water usage and the concerns that people have. Most people watching, they might not understand, what does a local aquifer have to do? What's the water coming out of my sink? What's the water that's going into the data center? How are these all connected?
So there's a whole lot of things that are happening. There's the municipal side, and then there's people on their own well water. And I'm watching a lot what's going on with the well water, because these big data centers are coming in rural areas. The old data centers, and we know, were smaller, and they were mostly in suburban areas. But now they're encroaching out into these rural areas of farmland where a lot of people are on their own well water. So they report reduction in water pressure. They aren't getting any pressure. Their water is just dripping into a bucket. They're starting to report, especially during construction phases. And these are very, very large centers. I mean, you're talking there could be 20 supersized Walmarts in one location in a big farmland area. And so the aquifers can be disturbed, and they start sending in pictures. Wait a minute, why is my water this murky brown? Well, you can't drink it at that point till you know what's in it. Then they report water pressure losses. And then they report that they're having to drill new wells. They're starting to report that they're already in a drought-stricken location. And the amounts of water that the AI data centers need, they're very concerned that they could lose their aquifers and they could literally be out of water.
Yeah. You know, there's been some pushback to this idea, partly because people say, hey, you know what? Look at the number of golf courses there are and what kind of water we use there. And the AI centers use a much incredibly smaller fraction, right? So it's like, what is the price of our progress? What are we willing to negotiate with? Should we be asking people to water their lawns less, or should we be making kind of bigger structural changes in our society to try to enable these? I mean, how do you respond to that idea that this isn't that much water in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but considering how many are coming up and the size of them and the massive amounts of, 30 million liters, et cetera, 60 million liters, et cetera, of water that's being used on top of an already strained system. And I think this is a conversation that needs to be had, because we have limited resources, we have drought conditions, and we have antiquated, aged out infrastructure everywhere. And in comparison to a golf course or a data center, you've seen the studies where they say they'd rather live next to a nuclear facility than a large data center, because this isn't about one issue. It's all of our resources, every resource that's important to them. And they feel that this is a stake that's too high. You're not talking just water. You're talking water, you're talking land, you're talking air, you're talking health, you're talking their entire resources and environment. feels under assault and is in jeopardy with no conversation to be had.
Are there specific companies that have been responsive to what they're seeing through your map, the numbers of letters that you're talking about? What's the response been?
We've seen one situation where Microsoft came out and educated the community, and they did show up. We have a trust factor at this point, right? Because we should have done that in the beginning, but they did show up. They start to get their questions answered. And when that happens, this is where we are seeing some shifts. I believe there's about 79 municipalities that have now put on bans, moratoriums, or a pause. Give us data, give us an environmental impact study. Let the council and us relook at this agenda. So let's have a pause before we come back and make a vote.
You've also started collecting health reports. When you talk about health, there was a model in 2024 led by Caltech and UC Riverside, and the researchers there estimated that the data centers could, and I want to emphasize the word could, contribute to increased numbers of asthma symptom cases and premature deaths, and that this public health cost could be somewhere around $20 billion. What are you seeing? What are people complaining about most?
Well, the noise, for one, let's start right there. They said it makes them feel like they're going mad. I've heard from ranchers who are concerned with this long 24-hour humming, hissing. It's pretty hard to describe it. It's pretty irritating if you got to listen to it 24/7. And again, this information comes in and we're going to go out and take a look at it. But they're concerned that in the past year, the cattle haven't had one live birth. So what is that? So these are things that we have to look at. They talk about headaches from the noise during the construction phase. This is a huge job and it comes out of nowhere, whether it be the dust, increased asthma, congestion, being delayed to work, watery eyes, itchy skin, all those types of health issues are there. So we kind of monitor what it is from during construction to, again, something that's up and running. And it does take time for these things to show themselves once something's up.
Thank you for joining us for this important conversation on data centers. Remember, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Until next time, be blessed.
What up, world? What's up, Columbus? Be sure to tune in every Sunday, Straightforward with Gloria Strode, right here on NBC 38.